Today's video, we're talking about natural solutions to lower your high blood pressure. This is the game changer. Why? Because most people today have high blood pressure. Most people today get on blood pressure medication. And if you watch my video from last week, you would know there's a ton of side effects to blood pressure medication, which are fatigue, nauseousness, dizziness, and feeling unsteady when you're walking. So in order to stay more functional, in my opinion, prescription medication for lowering your blood pressure is not the way to go. It's to look into natural solutions. And that's what this video is all about today. So in the last video, I did go over the underlying root causes that cause high blood pressure. So it would be good if you already haven't seen that video, watch that video so you'll understand the recommendations I'm going to make today. Now, with that said, the bottom line is that I always say, don't guess, test. And in that last video, I did allude to it is the best thing to undergo functional medicine lab testing. And one of the lab tests is called the minerals and metals test. And in that test, you see what your levels are of your electrolytes. And those electrolytes are important to know not only the individual numbers and levels of those biomarkers, it's important to know the ratios because your body responds to things in life with those ratios. And so, for example, it's important to know your level and ratio of calcium to magnesium. That's probably one of the most important ratios out of everything I'm going to talk about. And the bottom line is because calcium gets released first when you're in situations where you need to respond and be at your best. You know, it's more than just your normal state of being. And with that said, a lot of calcium gets released, and typically calcium is therefore higher. So what happens is that we need magnesium to balance it out. Ultimately, we're looking for the calcium and magnesium to be in relationship to each other with a ratio of 7-1. So when I can test that and see where you are, in other words, is there too much calcium? Is there too little calcium? Is there too much magnesium? Is there too little magnesium? Where is it in relationship to that ratio of 7-1? Because based upon that is where you're going to get high blood pressure. If the ratio consistently is above a 7-1, you're going to be in a constant state of high blood pressure because your body still thinks it needs to be in that what I call the fight or flight response. So knowing those levels makes a difference in the recommendations. In that case, if it is above a 7-1, my recommendation is that we need a magnesium supplement in order to reduce that ratio and bring it back into the 7-1. Obviously, there's times when it's going to be a little bit where we do need to worry about the calcium as well. If the calcium and magnesium are both low because your body's under that much stress that it's also depleting the magnesium and the calcium, and you need obviously the calcium for your bones. So in that case, I might recommend a calcium and magnesium supplement. So you can kind of see it's not about guessing. And so that's where it comes down to the saying that you're going to keep hearing me say, don't guess, test. The same type of a philosophy is going to go towards looking at the sodium and the potassium ratio. Because yes, a lot of times sodium is elevated. And it's a lot of times, yes, because of what we're eating and how much salt and the sodium content in that food. However, sodium is important in that fight or flight response. In that response that when you need to be on, it gets elevated. With the sodium and the potassium, often what we would recommend is actually vitamin D3 in combination with the potassium. Because the nice thing about that supplement is that the vitamin D actually helps to reabsorb the high level of calcium that's in the bloodstream. So it's helping to decrease that because that's what's often highly elevated is the calcium. The other thing it's doing is it's the potassium. If the sodium is too high, the potassium in that particular supplement will help get you closer to that ratio of 2.5-1. And there's food recommendations that you can do like sweet potatoes And you can also do avocados, which are a great source of potassium, to bring the potassium up so that it's bringing that sodium and potassium ratio back into balance. It's not just always stop, you're eating too much sodium. That might be the case also, but it's more important to look at the ratio, and we can tell you exactly and recommend what to do with your diet as well as the supplements. Now, the third thing that we would test for is also cortisol. On its different tests, there's two different lab tests. The electrolyte information comes from a lab test called the minerals and metals test. Now, what happens is that often there's cortisol that's high, and I talked about that in the last video. That information would come from a lab test called the stress, mood, and metabolism lab test. And we test for the levels of cortisol. And we test for it 4 different times of the day. We test for it upon waking, 12 noon, 4 p.m., and bedtime. In this case, because we're talking about blood pressure, the blood pressure late at night is the most dangerous. And the beauty behind knowing your levels of cortisol right before bed, we're able to tell if it's correlated with your blood pressure. If your cortisol is up too high, your blood pressure is going to be up too high. So at that time, we can see that level, and we would be able to make recommendations of how to bring that cortisol level down. Often we do that with Adrenal Soothe, and often a product that I'm very familiar with and use with my clients, as well as melatonin. Why melatonin? Because it gets at night. We're trying to get the body to relax. We're trying to also help it to get into deep sleep. Because often if people that have high blood pressure at night not only are in danger of a cardiovascular event, but you often can't sleep because the blood pressure is up too high. So see, it's going to help to get you into a good quality of sleep. Okay, I've also gathered a list for you of regular kind of things that you can easily do on a daily basis in your life to decrease high blood pressure and just even to prevent high blood pressure. You can look at it both ways. The first recommendations I would make, number one, how much water are you drinking? If your body is not hydrated, your blood pressure is going to go up. And there's a lot of other things that happen as well that your cells cannot respond or work well, and your health just starts going down. Drink water. The recommendation is half of your body weight in ounces. So, it's hard to say, is it 8 glasses, 9 glasses? It depends on your body weight. Figure that out. But here's the other thing I'm going to say about water. Make sure you're drinking good quality of water. A lot of people feel because they're drinking bottled water that they're drinking good quality water. The plastic is going to seep into the water. Now, I'm going to go into a whole other thing about water. I don't want to get too deep into that. But filtered water is the best water. And again, I'm going to go really deep into that with a different video. But drink water. That's going to be the number one I'm going to say that's easy to do in your life. You should be doing it. Make sure you're drinking enough and drink good quality water. The second thing is olive oil. Olive oil is it's like this magical thing. It's like a fountain of youth in olive oil. Make sure, though, again, it always comes down to quality, that it's first pressed, cold pressed olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, and buy it, if possible, in a dark glass bottle. So again, it's the quality. Sometimes you have to spend a little extra. You are worth it. Okay. So good quality of olive oil. Whether you use it in a salad dressing, you cook with it, use the olive oil. Very powerful antioxidant, helps to decrease inflammation, which of course decreases blood pressure. The third thing is start eating fatty fishes. The very popular one is wild caught salmon. It's also trout, mackerel, sardines, things like that are excellent because they increase your omega-3s. If you're not big on fish, and if you're not eating it close to like 5 to 6 times a week, then you should actually be on an omega-3 supplement in order to, again, it decreases blood pressure. It helps with your blood flow, and it helps to decrease inflammation. So all good things, but it really helps in a natural way to decrease your blood pressure. Garlic is the next thing. Make sure you're incorporating garlic in to different types of dishes for, dinner. Easy to, slice up and crush in and put in some like 1 to 2 cloves of garlic. But if you're not doing that on a daily basis, yes, there's garlic supplements that you can also do. But garlic is great also at decreasing blood pressure. Also, and I know a lot of people aren't doing this. They're doing it somewhat, but you're not doing it all the way. Eating 7 to 9 servings of green vegetables. Or I shouldn't say green vegetables. I'm going to say eating the rainbow. Green, yellow, red, white. Eat 7 to 9 servings of vegetables is definitely going to help with your fiber, your digestion, but certainly it definitely helps and contributes to really good blood pressure and good blood flow and decreasing overall inflammation in your body. Now, the next one, kind of interesting, dark chocolate. Dark chocolate, but it needs to be the 85% cacao, which is the natural part of chocolate. Chocolate is an incredible antioxidant, and which when you have a lot of antioxidants, it's going to again help with the blood flow, which decreases the blood pressure. The next thing I'm going to actually suggest is matcha tea. Now, with the matcha tea, you need to be making sure it's organic, it's shade grown, first harvest tea leaves, as well as it being ceremonial grade. I know that's a lot to say, but it's all very important. That is incredible to help decrease blood pressure. It helps to, green tea is great at all this. This is a green tea, but it has 3 times the amount of the polyphenols. Polyphenols are the main thing in the leaves of the green tea that help with blood flow, help with decreasing inflammation, helping therefore with decreasing your blood pressure. So incorporating some of these things, I'm telling you, you could do different parts of the one thing to do every day is to drink water, and yes, the 7 to 9 servings of the vegetables. But the other things you can kind of mix in and mix out. And if you're doing these things on a daily basis, you're going to keep a normal blood pressure, because even when occasionally it gets high for whatever reason, it can also be brought down pretty quickly naturally. Okay. Now, some of the things to decrease that would also help to decrease your blood pressure, and that's decreasing your meat intake, decreasing sugar, decreasing omega-6s. They're the processed carbs. So when I said earlier to take omega-3s, either a supplement or eating the fatty fish, they're omega-3s. I'm talking about the omega-6s. That's the chips and all the bad stuff, the cookies and all that. They're the omega-6s. They're processed carbs. Get rid of them or really minimize them in your diet. Also, minimize alcohol intake, because alcohol will increase your blood pressure. Same thing, stop smoking. Just forget about minimizing it. Just stop smoking. There's nothing good about smoking. It's going to wreak a lot of havoc, but in this video, we're talking about it will increase your blood pressure. Also, cut back on your caffeine intake. I'm not saying to stop it completely. It's needed at times, but our society, we tend to overdo it. So I'm going to really highly recommend you begin to cut back and minimize your caffeine intake. So other great things to do would be to exercise. You got to be moving, you got to be exercising. One of the best ways is walking that 7,500 to 10,000 steps in a day. It does a lot of good things. It's not only getting you moving and it's getting your heart rate up a little bit, but it's also, sometimes when you're out walking, it's just you enjoy the beauty of everything. It helps to decrease your stress. And that's the other thing, is to also, besides walking, you can meditate. Definitely meditation or sitting quietly, reading, slow things down. Our society is like go, go, go. And what we need to do is just slow down, bring that blood pressure down. And definitely meditation helps, and trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I know some people think sleep is underrated. It's not. It will help you to decrease your blood pressure if you are getting a good night's sleep, but there's also things you can do to make sure you're enhancing the ability to get into 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because it's not just the hours, it's also, again, the quality of the sleep. You need to be getting enough REM sleep, and deep sleep in order to have your body heal itself to get into that natural state of healing. So listen, guys, everything is about knowing and testing and getting good advice, knowing when to balance things out in your body that are out of balance, knowing certain foods to cut out, certain things to add in can really make a huge difference so that you don't have to be on blood pressure medication. Because it's my bottom line, and I hope it's your bottom line. It's about staying as healthy as you can for as long as you can. Take care, everybody.